We get used to animated movies having a good sense of humour. Even more serious films like Inside Out and Up, despite having very dark themes, balance that with some very hilarious humour. We get used to animated films throwing jokes, and it seems to create this wonderful balance of family-friendly films with serious themes. But then comes from 1999, directed by Brad Bird, The Iron Giant, which tells the story of a boy who discovers a giant iron robot and befriends him. The film has some very deep themes, but chooses to show them very differently than most animated films, and so I'm here to break down why. Hi there, it's me, the Average Critic, and let's talk about The Iron Giant, the most serious animated movie. So humor is something everyone loves and needs. I think everyone says when looking for a romantic partner, they say they are looking for someone with a sense of humor. Animated films are no different, as they offer the most funniest films to date, most of them being the appeal of these types of films. But when I watched The Iron Giant when planning for this review, I realised something. The Iron Giant isn't all that funny. That's not to say this film doesn't have some comedic moments. It does, with most of them coming from Kent Mansley, voiced by Christopher McDonald, who plays his role in spades. But The Iron Giant doesn't have that many jokes. There is the opening with Dean having a squirrel in his pants and Hogarth being on coffee and a smattering of others, but it does nothing more than make you chuckle a little. It isn't anything compared to this.
Honey!
What?
Where's my super suit?
What?
Which, by the way, is the same director. You can tell the jokes are much more natural in this film, deciding that if there is room for something funny, then it's there. If not, they play the scene seriously. But that's kind of the Iron Giant's point. It isn't trying to make you laugh, it's trying to get you to think. You see, Brad Bird, the director, worked on the film when coping with the death of his sister, who was killed by her husband, and he based the idea around, what if a gun had a soul and didn't want to be a gun? The Iron Giant's theme of war, gun violence, personality, and moral choice are what drive the story and characters set during the Cold War. The story is much more serious, even more serious than anything Pixar have ever done. Even characters like Kent Mansley, who despite delivering more of the comedy of the film, is a true horrible villain. He works for the government and has a tremendous amount of power, but chooses to take advantage of that power for his own personal gain, even going so far as to sacrificing Hogarth. The characters are like that in this story because they represent more than just being a funny character. You don't like the Iron Giant or Hogarth because they're funny, you like them because of their personal morals. Hogarth is an outcast who has a love for animals and sees past the Iron Giant's possible danger to see the robot who is more than just a weapon. The giant, who has a mind mentality of a child, acts as a sense of innocence and cuteness. Yeah, that's right, robots can be cute. Even the Iron Giant. Wall-E, you ain't the only cute robot here.
Wow.
So considering this film's darker perspective, it is very hindered by the time. At only 87 minutes long, I wanted this film to be longer, but I understand why. You see, in 1999, a large portion of films were no more than about an hour and 30 minutes. In modern cinema, however, thanks to films like Avengers Endgame and Wolf of Wall Street to name a few, the amount of films exceeding the 2-hour runtime has increased dramatically. This film is really hindered by the time period. As you can tell, even though it has some really dark material, it's still an animated film from 1999 with a PG rating. Again, I'm not saying this to hinder the film, but I believe if this film came out in 2022, it could stand to give us more scenes and even stronger, more serious moments. And those serious moments hit and hit hard. The Iron Giant with Vin Diesel's amazing performance, and the animators who created this character delve into really dark moralities of the circle of life with something like the deer scene, making some touching moments of death and grief. And of course, there is the classic scene. I mean, wow, what a metaphor for a character arc. The weapon choosing to not be a weapon and to be better than what he was created for. Without getting too political, the themes of this film are even more resonant today, particularly in America, with gun laws being a constant topic of discussion. Someone like me doesn't have that problem.
I have a British accent, I'm possibly homosexual, I never brush my teeth, and my wife is ghastly.
Bombs away!
But the messages of the Iron Giant doesn't force itself down your throat, but takes them incredibly seriously. There are so many moments where this film could have chose to be funny. It doesn't even have the comedy sidekick character most animated films are known for. Everything about the Iron Giant is serious, and for good reason. Even researching this film, I found a lot of concerned parents asking if this film is even appropriate for children, some even thinking that the PG rating is too low. Whether it's the lack of humour that makes some parents worry that this film might be too scary for some kids, making them just want to stick to the classic Disney films with fun-loving musical numbers. I certainly think it's important to teach the younger generation about these serious topics in a safe and fun way, and the Iron Giant definitely does that. Wow, nearly got a little bit too political there. Even the animation, which at first can look a little outdated, is actually even better than you think, as even the poster for this film is a homage to American propaganda of the Cold War. Even the design of the Iron Giant himself is beautiful and represents the time period. This film came out in 1999, and yet the animation kinda makes the film look older. Toy Story 2 came out at the same time, and yet somehow the fact that this film actually kind of looks older almost makes it better. Everything to the design of the giant to the setting the film takes place in represents a much more serious tone. The film would still work in a modern day setting, but with a much more serious tones of setting it during the Cold War heightens the theme of war and gun violence. I remember watching it in primary school, and I haven't really watched it until preparing for this review, and I was pleasantly surprised just how dark this film is. The cult following of this film has reached a lot of people my age, and for good reason. With its darker tones and many scenes making you cry your eyes out, I was almost flustered how serious it was. Perhaps we get used to childhood classics being funny comedies where we watch a bunch of cartoon characters do silly things, but the Iron Giant definitely stayed with us because of its more serious messages and heartwarming scenes. So overall, the Iron Giant isn't the most funniest film, but it is definitely one of the most serious animated films out there to date, with very dark themes on gun violence and war and personality and choosing who you want to be in this world. And so even though it might not be the most funniest, it is definitely one of the most strongest. So after all that, it gets my professional rating of 8 out of 10. But due to the slight lack of humour that I personally just want in an animated film, it gets my personal rating of 7 out of 10. This was honestly one of the hardest films to score because this film is so bold, being a much more serious film, but in order to keep me personally invested, I kinda need a little bit more humour, or maybe even some darker tones. I really wanted this film to go even darker, or at least just a little bit funnier. But everyone should watch this film and watch it again, especially with all the political issues in the world right now. The Iron Giant definitely takes the trophy as being one of the most unique animated films out there. So thank you for joining me in this video. Let me know in the comment section your thoughts on the Iron Giant, and also if there are any videos you would like to see, please by all means let me know. If you haven't already, now is a good time to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a single video. Check out the channel for all things animated movies as well, my Twitter and my Instagram. But thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I will see you all in the next one.